There comes a moment in every person's life when excuses stop working. A moment when blaming circumstances no longer brings comfort. A moment when, deep down, you are forced to face a truth you have been avoiding for a long time. No one is coming to build your life for you. Not your family. Not your friends. Not society. Not luck. If your life is going to change, it will only change because you decide to become stronger than you were yesterday. Building your strongest self is not a hobby. It is not something you do only when you feel inspired. It is not something you return to when life becomes easy. It is a daily responsibility. Life does not pause while you wait to feel motivated. Time does not slow down while you recover from disappointment. Every single day, the world keeps moving forward, whether you show up or not. And every day you wake up, you are becoming something. Stronger or weaker, more disciplined or more distracted, more focused or more lost. Most people don't fail in one dramatic moment. They fail quietly. They fail through small decisions that feel harmless in the moment. Choosing comfort over discipline. Choosing distraction over growth. Choosing tomorrow instead of today. One day does not ruin a life, but thousands of careless days will. Every wasted hour compounds. Every excuse you repeat strengthens weakness. Every time you avoid doing the hard thing, you train yourself to stay exactly where you are. People often ask why they feel stuck, behind, or unfulfilled. The answer is uncomfortable but simple. They never stayed committed to themselves long enough. They started and stopped. They tried and quit. They waited for motivation instead of building discipline. Strength is not built in emotional moments. Strength is built in boring repetition. In doing the same small right things over and over again, even when you don't feel like it. There is no such thing as standing still in life. You are either becoming stronger or becoming weaker. You are either sharpening your mind or dulling it. You are either building confidence or reinforcing self-doubt. Every single day, your actions are voting for the person you are becoming. The most dangerous illusion is believing you can pause your growth without consequences. You can't. Life punishes stagnation. Most people have potential. Very few develop it. Not because they lack ability, but because they lack discipline. They want results without routine. Success without sacrifice. Confidence without discomfort. They work on themselves only when motivation is high, when someone is watching, when results come quickly. But real growth happens when no one claps, when no one checks, when no one cares. That is where the gap is created between those who talk and those who build. Your strongest self is built in silence. It is built in struggle. It is built in moments that feel invisible and unrewarded. Daily commitment is your real advantage. Not intensity once in a while, but consistency every single day. You don't need heroic effort once a month. You need disciplined effort today. One workout, one reading session, one focused hour, one disciplined choice, brick by brick. People underestimate how powerful small daily actions are. But small actions repeated daily create unstoppable momentum. You don't wake up confident. You earn confidence by keeping promises to yourself. You don't wake up disciplined. You train discipline by doing what you said you would do, even when you don't feel like it. Every time you follow through, you build trust with yourself. Every time you don't, you weaken it. Building your strongest self does not start with changing everything. It starts with changing something. Reading instead of scrolling. Moving your body instead of sitting still. Eating to fuel yourself instead of escaping. Planning your life instead of drifting through it. Small decisions shape identity. Every disciplined choice tells your mind, I am someone who shows up. Every avoided choice teaches the opposite. There will be days when the work feels pointless. Days when results don't show. Days when progress feels slow and invisible. That is where most people quit. But understand this clearly. The invisible phase is the most important phase. Strength is being built beneath the surface. Habits are forming. Character is being shaped. The foundation of your future is laid in moments where it looks like nothing is happening. If you quit here, you lose everything. Stop waiting for motivation. Motivation is unreliable. Discipline is permanent. If you wait to feel ready, you will never move. If you wait to feel confident, you will stay stuck. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. Show up tired. Show up uncertain. Show up unexcited. Just show up. One of the most painful feelings is not failure. It is betraying yourself. Saying you will do something and not doing it. Setting goals and abandoning them. Promising change and repeating the same behavior. Every broken promise weakens self-respect. Every kept promise strengthens it. Your strongest self is someone who keeps their word, especially when no one else is watching. Anyone can improve when life is easy. The real test comes when you are tired, stressed, discouraged, or overwhelmed. That is when growth matters most. You don't stop brushing your teeth because you're tired. You don't stop breathing because you're busy. Building yourself must become non-negotiable. Your future self is watching you right now. That version of you will either thank you or resent you. Every single day you decide which one it will be. You are not late. You are not broken. You are not incapable. But you must decide today that building yourself is no longer optional. No one is coming. No shortcut is coming. No miracle is coming. Only you. And if you choose to build your strongest self every single day, there is no version of your life that does not eventually change. Every single day, whether you realize it or not, your mind is under attack. Not in a dramatic way, not in a way that feels obvious, but in a quiet, constant, relentless way. Noise surrounds you from the moment you wake up. Notifications, opinions, expectations, comparisons, voices telling you who you should be, what you should want, how fast you should be moving, and why you are not enough yet. If you do not learn how to control what enters your mind, your life will slowly become a reaction to everything around you instead of a creation of who you truly are. Most people believe they are thinking for themselves, but they are not. They are reacting. They are absorbing. They are letting the world decide what deserves their attention. And attention is not a small thing. Attention is your life force. What you focus on shapes how you think. How you think shapes how you act. And how you act determines the direction of your entire life. When your attention is scattered, your energy is scattered. When your energy is scattered, your progress is weak. That is why so many people feel exhausted without doing anything meaningful. Their minds are busy all day, but their lives are not moving forward. The world will always be loud. That will never change. There will always be opinions, criticism, trends, arguments, fear, negativity, and distraction. Waiting for the noise to disappear before you focus is like waiting for the ocean to calm down before you learn how to swim. It will never happen. You have to become stronger than the noise. You have to train your mind to stay steady while everything around you is chaotic. This is not a luxury. This is survival for anyone who wants to build something meaningful. The moment you start listening to every opinion, you begin losing yourself. One person says you are moving too slow. Another says you are dreaming too big. Someone else tells you to be realistic. Someone reminds you of your past. Someone compares you to others. And slowly, without realizing it, your vision starts shrinking. You stop trusting your instincts. You start questioning your path. You hesitate more. You move slower. Not because you are incapable, but because your mind is crowded with voices that were never meant to guide your life. Opinions do not build futures. Actions do. Opinions do not create confidence. Repetition does. Opinions do not move you forward. Focus does. The people who are loudest with their opinions are usually the ones least willing to take responsibility for their own lives. And yet, if you are not careful, you will let their noise carry more weight than your own inner voice. That is one of the fastest ways to lose momentum. Training your mind to ignore the noise does not mean pretending the noise does not exist. It means recognizing it for what it is and choosing not to give it control. It means understanding that not every thought deserves attention. Not every emotion deserves action. Not every opinion deserves a response. Most things that demand your energy do not deserve it at all. Your mind is like a doorway. Every day, things are trying to walk in. Fear, doubt, comparison, jealousy, negativity, distraction. If you leave the door wide open, everything enters. And once inside, it is much harder to remove. That is why you must stand guard at the door of your mind. You must decide what gets access and what does not. This is not about being cold. This is about being disciplined. You have a limited amount of mental energy every day. If you spend it arguing with people who do not understand you, explaining yourself to people who have already decided to misunderstand you, or comparing your journey to someone else's highlight reel, you will have nothing left for your actual work. And the tragedy is not that you get tired. The tragedy is that your dreams suffer quietly while you are distracted loudly. Most people are exhausted not because they are doing too much, but because they are focusing on too many things that do not matter. They are mentally everywhere except where their power is needed most. When your focus is divided, your results are diluted. You cannot build a strong mind while constantly reacting to noise. Strength requires stillness. Clarity requires silence. And silence today is something you must actively choose. Learning to ignore the noise starts with getting clear on what matters. When you know what you are working toward, it becomes easier to recognize distractions. If something does not push you closer to your vision, it is noise. If something drains your energy without helping you grow, it is noise. If something fills your mind with doubt instead of direction, it is noise. This clarity gives you permission to let go without guilt. You do not owe everyone your attention. You do not owe everyone an explanation. You do not owe everyone a response. Your life is too important to be hijacked by people who are not building anything themselves. When you try to please everyone, you end up betraying yourself. When you listen to everyone, you lose the ability to hear your own voice. There will be times when ignoring the noise feels uncomfortable. You will feel misunderstood. You will feel judged. You will feel alone. But understand this deeply. Loneliness is often the price of clarity. The people who build extraordinary lives are rarely surrounded by applause in the early stages. They are surrounded by doubt, silence, and confusion. What separates them is not that they did not hear the noise, but that they refused to let it decide their direction. Your mind must become a place of strength, not chaos. That means being intentional about what you consume, what you watch, what you listen to, what conversations you engage in, what thoughts you entertain. Your environment shapes your mindset more than motivation ever will. If you constantly feed your mind fear and negativity, you will think fearful thoughts. If you constantly feed it distraction, you will struggle to focus. You cannot expect clarity from a cluttered mind. There is a difference between feedback and noise. Feedback helps you grow. Noise keeps you stuck. Feedback comes from people who have earned the right to speak into your life. Noise comes from everyone else. Learning the difference is a skill, and it is one of the most important skills you will ever develop. Not every criticism is wisdom. Not every opinion is truth. Just because something is loud does not mean it is right. One of the most powerful moments in personal growth is when you realize you do not need permission to follow your path. You do not need validation to take the next step. You do not need approval to believe in yourself. The only voice you must answer to is the one inside you that knows you were meant for more. When you trust that voice, even when it shakes, you become dangerous in the best possible way. Training your mind is a daily practice. Every day you will be tempted to react, to defend yourself, to explain yourself, to seek reassurance. Every time you resist that temptation, you grow stronger. Every time you choose focus over reaction, you sharpen your mind. Over time, you develop a mental toughness that allows you to stand in the middle of chaos without losing direction. There is freedom in no longer needing the world to understand you. Freedom in no longer carrying the weight of other people's expectations. Freedom in knowing that your worth is not up for debate. That freedom gives you energy. And that energy, when focused, becomes momentum. Momentum becomes progress. Progress becomes confidence. Confidence becomes unshakable belief. The noise will never stop. There will always be critics. There will always be doubters. There will always be distractions disguised as opportunities. The question is not whether the noise exists. The question is whether you will allow it to live rent-free in your mind. Every time you give attention to something that does not serve you, you are making a trade. And the cost of that trade is your future focus. You must become ruthless with your attention. Not angry, not bitter, just disciplined. Calmly choosing not to engage. Calmly choosing not to explain. Calmly choosing not to react. This calm is not weakness. It is strength under control. It is knowing where you are going and refusing to be pulled off course. When you train your mind to ignore the noise, something powerful happens. You move faster. You think clearer. You stop second-guessing every decision. You stop shrinking your vision to fit other people's comfort. You start trusting yourself again. And trust is the foundation of confidence. There will be days when the noise feels louder than usual. Days when doubt creeps in. Days when distraction feels tempting. On those days, remind yourself why you started. Remind yourself what is at stake. Remind yourself that greatness is never built by following the crowd. It is built by those who are willing to walk alone until their path becomes undeniable. Your responsibility is not to silence the world. That is impossible. Your responsibility is to protect your mind, to keep it clean, to keep it focused, to keep it aligned with your vision. Because the stronger your mind becomes, the clearer your path becomes. And the clearer your path becomes, the harder it is for anything to knock you off it. You do not need everyone to believe in you. You do not need everyone to understand you. You do not need everyone to support you. You need clarity. You need focus. You need the courage to keep moving forward even when the noise is loud and the silence feels heavy. Train your mind until you can hear the noise and keep walking anyway. Train your mind until you can stand firm in your truth without needing validation. Train your mind until you trust yourself more than you fear opinions. Because once you master that, the world loses its power over you. And a focused mind is one of the most unstoppable forces on earth. At some point in life, you have to stop lying to yourself. Not in a dramatic way, not in a moment of anger or emotion, but in a quiet, honest moment where you finally admit the truth. The truth that most of your limits are not imposed on you by the world. They are created inside your own mind. They are built from fear, doubt, comfort, and habits you never questioned. And as long as you keep protecting those limits, your life will never expand beyond them. Fear is subtle. It does not always show up as panic. Most of the time, it shows up as hesitation, as overthinking, as waiting, as convincing yourself that now is not the right time. Fear sounds reasonable, tells you to be careful, to wait until conditions are perfect, to avoid embarrassment, to avoid failure. And because it sounds logical, most people obey it without realizing they are being controlled. Comfort works the same way. Comfort feels safe, familiar, predictable. But comfort is dangerous because it slowly shrinks your world. The more you choose what feels easy, the harder everything else becomes. The more you avoid discomfort, the less capable you feel when it is unavoidable. Comfort does not destroy your life all at once. It erodes it quietly, day by day, until one day you wake up and realize you have lived far below your potential. Growth has always demanded discomfort. Every version of you that is stronger, wiser, more confident, and more capable exists on the other side of something you are currently avoiding. You cannot outthink fear. You cannot negotiate with discomfort. You can only move through it. And the moment you do, its power over you weakens. Most people wait until fear disappears before they act. That day never comes. Fear does not vanish when you are ready. It fades when you prove to yourself that you can act despite it. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the decision to move forward while fear is present. And every time you do that, your self-belief grows. There will always be reasons not to start. You are too young, too old, not experienced enough, not confident enough, not ready yet. But readiness is not something you feel. It is something you build by taking action. Confidence does not come before action. It comes because of action. Waiting to feel confident is one of the most common traps people fall into, and it keeps them stuck for years. Your comfort zone is not a place of rest. It is a place of stagnation. Nothing new grows there. Nothing strong is built there. The comfort zone only feels safe because it is familiar. But familiar does not mean fulfilling. Many people confuse the two and end up living lives that feel empty even though they look stable from the outside. Discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a signal that something is changing, that you are stretching beyond the limits of your past self, that you are doing something that requires growth. When you start interpreting discomfort as progress instead of danger, your relationship with fear changes completely. The first time you do something hard, it feels overwhelming. The second time, it feels uncomfortable. The third time, it feels manageable. And eventually, it becomes part of who you are. This is how transformation works. Not through massive breakthroughs, but through repeated exposure to discomfort until it no longer controls you. Most people underestimate themselves because they judge their future by their past. They look at who they were yesterday and assume that is who they will be tomorrow. But you are not fixed. You are adaptable. You are capable of learning, growing, and evolving. The only thing that keeps you stuck is the story you keep telling yourself about who you are. Every time you say, "I can't," ask yourself if it is truly inability or simply unfamiliarity. Most things feel impossible until they become familiar. Every skill you admire was once awkward. Every strong person was once weak. Every confident person was once uncertain. The difference is that they did not let discomfort stop them from continuing. Fear thrives on imagination. It creates worst-case scenarios and convinces you they are inevitable. But most of the things you are afraid of never happen. And even when they do, they are rarely as catastrophic as your mind predicted. More often than not, fear is protecting you from growth, not danger. The price of avoiding fear is much higher than the price of facing it. When you avoid fear, you trade short-term comfort for long-term regret. You trade potential for predictability. You trade growth for safety. And years later, the question that haunts you is not, "What if I fail?" but "What if I never tried?" Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. Motivation will come and go. Discipline stays. Discipline means doing what needs to be done even when your emotions argue against it. Even when fear whispers excuses. Even when comfort invites you to stay still. Discipline is choosing long-term fulfillment over short-term relief. You will never accidentally become the person you want to be. You must choose that path intentionally. And that choice often feels uncomfortable. It requires sacrifice. It requires saying no to things that are easy. It requires facing parts of yourself you have been avoiding. But that discomfort is temporary. The regret of not choosing growth lasts much longer. Every time you step into discomfort, you expand your capacity. Things that once felt overwhelming become normal. Challenges that once scared you become manageable. And slowly, quietly, you begin to trust yourself. You begin to realize that you are stronger than you thought, that you can handle more than you imagined, that fear does not define your limits. There will be moments when you want to retreat, when the old habits call you back, when the comfort zone feels tempting. That is normal. Growth is not a straight line, but what matters is that you do not let temporary discomfort push you back into permanent stagnation. Your future self is shaped by the discomfort you are willing to endure today. Every hard conversation, every early morning, every disciplined decision, every moment you choose growth over comfort. These moments may not feel heroic, but they are shaping a version of you that is capable, resilient, and confident. You do not need to eliminate fear from your life. You need to stop letting it sit in the driver's seat. Fear can come along for the ride, but it does not get to decide the direction. That decision belongs to you. The moment you stop running from discomfort, you reclaim your power. The moment you stop negotiating with fear, you step into leadership over your own life. And leadership always requires courage. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind that shows up consistently, even when no one is watching. You were not meant to live a small, cautious life. You were not meant to stay hidden inside your comfort zone. You were meant to grow, stretch, build, and become. And that path will always demand that you face discomfort before you enjoy confidence. Do not wait for fear to disappear. Do not wait for comfort to release you. Move anyway. Step forward anyway. Choose growth anyway. Because every time you do, you prove to yourself that you are capable of more. And once you believe that, your life begins to expand in ways you never thought possible. At some point, you begin to realize that talent is not what separates people who succeed from people who don't. Intelligence is not the deciding factor. Luck is not the real difference either. The true separation happens in the moments no one sees, when discipline is tested and excuses feel convincing. The truth is simple but uncomfortable. Most people do not fail because they are incapable. They fail because they are inconsistent. Inconsistency slowly destroys momentum, creates a cycle of starting strong and stopping early, of feeling inspired one day and defeated the next, of making promises in moments of motivation and breaking them when discipline is required. Over time, this pattern damages self-trust. And when you stop trusting yourself, everything becomes harder. Goals feel heavier. Confidence feels fragile. Progress feels distant. Discipline is not about being harsh with yourself. It is about being honest. Honest about what needs to be done. Honest about what you are avoiding. Honest about the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Discipline is the ability to act according to your values instead of your emotions. Emotions change daily. Values, when chosen carefully, create stability. Most people wait for discipline to feel natural. It never does in the beginning. Discipline feels uncomfortable because it requires you to override habits that once kept you safe. It asks you to delay gratification, to choose effort over ease, to do today what others postpone until tomorrow. And because this goes against human instinct, most people resist it. But discipline is a skill, not a personality trait. You are not born disciplined. You become disciplined through repetition, through doing small, uncomfortable things consistently until they become part of who you are. At first, discipline feels forced. Over time, it feels familiar. Eventually, it feels necessary. The mistake many people make is believing discipline must be extreme, that it requires perfection, that missing one day means failure. This mindset causes people to quit too early. Discipline is not about never falling off. It is about returning quickly when you do. Progress is built by resilience, not perfection. Your habits are shaping your identity whether you are aware of it or not. Every repeated action sends a message to your mind about who you are. When you wake up early consistently, you become someone who keeps commitments. When you train your body regularly, you become someone who values strength. When you focus deeply on your work, you become someone who respects their potential. Identity is built through behavior. This is why discipline is so powerful. It does not just change what you do. It changes who you believe you are. And once your identity shifts, your behavior follows naturally. You stop forcing yourself to act differently because acting differently feels aligned with who you have become. There will be days when discipline feels heavy. Days when you question whether it is worth it. Days when skipping feels tempting and justified. Those are the days that matter most. Anyone can show discipline when motivation is high and life is easy. Growth happens when discipline shows up during resistance. Excuses are clever. They adapt to your circumstances. When you are busy, the excuse is lack of time. When you are tired, the excuse is rest. When you are afraid, the excuse is preparation. Excuses are not lies. They are partial truths used to avoid discomfort. And the more often you accept them, the more convincing they become. Discipline requires you to see excuses clearly and choose action anyway. Not with anger, not with force, but with calm determination. A quiet decision that what you want long-term matters more than what you want right now. This decision, repeated daily, changes everything. There is a certain confidence that comes from discipline. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind. The kind that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself. From knowing that when things get hard, you don't disappear. You show up. That confidence is earned, not imagined. And once you have it, it cannot be taken from you easily. Structure supports discipline. When your days are chaotic, discipline has to fight harder. When your environment is disorganized, your mind follows. Simple routines create stability. Not rigid schedules, but intentional patterns. A consistent wake-up time. A dedicated focus period. A regular moment for reflection. These anchors reduce decision fatigue and make discipline easier to maintain. You do not need to rely on willpower alone. Willpower is limited. Systems last longer. When you design your environment to support your goals, discipline becomes less about fighting yourself and more about following a plan. Remove unnecessary distractions. Prepare in advance. Make the right choice easier and the wrong choice harder. Discipline also requires patience. Results rarely appear immediately. Progress often feels invisible at first. This is where many people quit. They mistake lack of instant results for lack of effectiveness. But discipline works quietly. It compounds. Small actions repeated daily create outcomes that look sudden but were built slowly. Think about the habits you admire in others. Their consistency, their calm under pressure, their reliability. Those qualities were not accidental. They were trained, built day by day, decision by decision. And the same process is available to you. There will be moments when you feel behind, when comparison creeps in, when you question whether your effort is enough. In those moments, discipline grounds you. It reminds you that your responsibility is not to match someone else's pace. It is to honor your own commitment. You are not required to do everything. You are required to do what matters. Discipline is about prioritization, about saying no to what drains you so you can say yes to what builds you. This often means disappointing people, missing out, letting go of habits that once felt comforting. Growth demands trade-offs. Discipline teaches you self-respect. Every time you follow through, you send yourself a powerful message. I matter. My goals matter. My future matters. Over time, this self-respect becomes unshakable. You stop negotiating with your standards. You stop lowering your expectations to fit your comfort. There will be setbacks, days you fail, moments you regress. Discipline does not disappear in those moments. It becomes even more important. Discipline is what brings you back. What prevents one mistake from becoming a pattern. What turns failure into feedback instead of defeat. The most dangerous lie you can tell yourself is that discipline limits your freedom. In reality, it creates it. Without discipline, you are controlled by impulse, by mood, by distraction. With discipline, you gain control over your time, your energy, and your direction. That control is freedom. When discipline becomes part of your identity, life changes. You stop relying on bursts of motivation. You stop starting over every week. You stop feeling guilty for not following through. Instead, you build steady progress, quiet confidence, sustainable growth. Discipline is not glamorous. It does not look impressive in the moment. It is repetitive, unexciting, often lonely, but it is the foundation of everything meaningful. Without it, Potential remains unused. Dreams remain ideas. Goals remain wishes. You do not need to transform your life overnight. You need to commit to small acts of discipline daily. Show up when it is boring. Follow through when it is inconvenient. Stay consistent when no one is watching. This is how lives are built. Over time, discipline reshapes your mind. Challenges feel less overwhelming. Discomfort feels more manageable. You trust yourself more. You hesitate less. You move with purpose. And others notice. Not because you announce it, but because your presence changes. You will still feel fear. You will still feel doubt. Discipline does not remove these emotions. It teaches you how to act despite them. And that ability is what separates those who grow from those who stay stuck. Every disciplined choice is a vote for the person you are becoming. Every excuse rejected strengthens your resolve. Every moment you choose consistency over comfort, you build a future that aligns with your values. You do not need to be perfect. You need to be committed. You need to return to your standards even when you fall short. Discipline is not about punishment. It is about alignment, aligning your actions with the life you say you want. And one day you look back and realize something important. The life you are living now was built quietly, through ordinary days, through disciplined choices, through moments when quitting felt easier but you stayed anyway. That is the power of discipline. And once you understand it, you stop searching for shortcuts and start trusting the process. At some stage in your journey, you realize that effort alone is not enough. You can work hard, stay disciplined, face discomfort, and still feel like you are running in circles if your direction is unclear. This is where most people get frustrated. They are busy, but not effective. They are tired, but not fulfilled. They are moving, but not progressing in the direction that truly matters. Clarity is not something that magically appears one day. It is built through honest reflection, through asking yourself difficult questions and refusing to settle for comfortable answers. When you lack clarity, you say yes to too many things. You chase opportunities that don't align with your values. You measure success by other people's standards. And slowly, your energy gets divided until nothing receives your full effort. A clear direction acts like a filter. It helps you decide what deserves your time and what does not. Without it, everything feels urgent. Everything feels important. And when everything is important, nothing truly is. You end up exhausted, confused, and disconnected from your own purpose. Many people avoid clarity because it demands responsibility. Once you are clear about what you want, you can no longer hide behind confusion. You can no longer blame uncertainty for inaction. Clarity removes excuses. It forces you to confront the gap between intention and behavior, and that can be uncomfortable. But discomfort is often the price of alignment. When your actions align with your values, even hard work feels meaningful. Even struggle feels purposeful. Without alignment, even success feels empty. You achieve goals and still feel unsatisfied because they were never truly yours to begin with. Clarity starts with understanding what matters most to you, not what impresses others, not what looks good on the outside, not what society rewards the loudest. What matters to you when no one is watching? What kind of life feels honest? What kind of person you respect when you look in the mirror? This requires slowing down. In a world that glorifies constant movement, slowing down feels wrong. But without moments of stillness, you cannot hear your own thoughts. Noise drowns clarity. Reflection creates it. When you take time to reflect, patterns emerge. You begin to see what energizes you and what drains you, what aligns with you and what pulls you away from yourself. Clarity also requires letting go. Letting go of outdated goals. Letting go of identities you've outgrown. Letting go of paths you chose out of fear rather than desire. This is not failure. This is evolution. Holding on to a direction that no longer fits you will only create resistance and frustration. Many people stay stuck because they are afraid of choosing the wrong path. But indecision is also a choice, and it has consequences. Clarity does not mean certainty. It means commitment. Commitment to a direction that feels right based on what you know now. You can adjust as you grow. You cannot adjust if you never begin. Once you gain clarity, focus becomes easier. You stop spreading yourself thin. You stop chasing every opportunity. You start saying no without guilt. Focus is not about doing more. It is about doing less better. It is about channeling your energy into what truly moves you forward. Distraction is the enemy of clarity. It keeps you busy enough to feel productive but distracted enough to avoid meaningful progress. Endless consumption, endless comparison, endless planning without execution. These are modern forms of avoidance. They feel safe because they look like effort, but they produce little growth. Focus demands courage. Courage to commit. Courage to ignore distractions. Courage to stay with one thing long enough to see results. Many people give up just before clarity turns into confidence. They switch paths too early. They mistake discomfort for misalignment. But growth often feels uncomfortable before it feels rewarding. When your direction is clear, discipline feels lighter. You no longer force yourself as much because your actions make sense. Your why supports your effort. You are not just working hard. You are working with intention. This creates endurance. You can tolerate more difficulty when you understand its purpose. Clarity also protects your energy. You stop engaging in arguments that don't matter. You stop proving yourself to people who don't understand you. You stop explaining your vision to those who are committed to misunderstanding it. Energy saved here can be invested where it actually counts. There will still be moments of doubt. Clarity does not eliminate uncertainty, but it gives you an anchor. When things feel chaotic, you return to what you know matters. When motivation drops, clarity reminds you why you started. Keeps you steady when emotions fluctuate. Your environment should reflect your clarity. When your space is cluttered, your mind follows. Simplifying your surroundings supports focus. Removing distractions supports consistency. You don't need a perfect setup. You need an intentional one. One that supports your priorities instead of fighting them. Clarity also changes how you define success. You stop measuring progress by speed or comparison. You start measuring it by alignment. Are your actions moving you closer to the life you want? Are you honoring your values? Are you growing in ways that matter to you? This perspective creates peace even during slow seasons. Many people chase clarity as if it is a destination. It is not. It is a process, a conversation you continue having with yourself as you grow. What mattered to you 5 years ago may not matter now, and that is okay. The goal is not to cling to one version of clarity forever. The goal is to stay honest with yourself as you evolve. When you lack clarity, you seek validation. When you have clarity, you seek progress. Validation is temporary. Progress is fulfilling. Progress builds confidence because it is rooted in action, not approval. The more aligned your actions are with your values, the less you need external reassurance. Clarity also teaches you patience. When you know where you are going, you are less tempted to rush. You understand that meaningful things take time. You stop panicking about temporary setbacks. You trust the process because you chose it intentionally. There will be moments when your clarity is tested. When opportunities arise that look attractive but don't align. When pressure pushes you to compromise. When fear whispers that a different path might be easier. These moments reveal how committed you truly are. Clarity without commitment fades quickly. Protecting your clarity is an ongoing responsibility. It requires regular reflection, regular reassessment, regular honesty. You cannot set a direction once and forget about it. Life changes. You change. Staying aligned requires attention. When clarity and discipline work together, progress accelerates. You waste less time. You make fewer impulsive decisions. You recover faster from setbacks. You move with intention instead of urgency. This combination is powerful because it creates sustainable growth. You begin to notice a shift. Your days feel more purposeful. Your effort feels more meaningful. Your stress becomes more manageable. Not because life is easier, but because you are clearer. You know why you are doing what you are doing. Clarity does not guarantee success, but it guarantees direction. And direction is what turns effort into results over time. Without it, even the strongest discipline eventually burns out. With it, even slow progress feels worthwhile. You are not required to have everything figured out. You are required to be honest about what matters now. Take responsibility for choosing a direction, even if it is imperfect. Action creates feedback. Feedback creates refinement. Refinement creates clarity. When you stop drifting and start choosing intentionally, your life changes quietly. You feel more grounded, more focused, more present, and that presence allows you to build something meaningful, step by step. Clarity is not about control. It is about alignment. Alignment between who you are, what you value, and how you live. And when that alignment exists, even the hardest work feels like progress. There comes a time when you realize that waiting for the perfect moment has quietly cost you years. You kept telling yourself you needed more information, more confidence, more time, more preparation. And while you were waiting, life kept moving. Opportunities passed. Momentum faded. And the version of you that could have been built through action remained only an idea. Perfection is one of the most convincing excuses there is. It disguises itself as responsibility. It sounds mature. It sounds careful. But most of the time, perfection is just fear wearing better clothes. Fear of making mistakes. Fear of looking foolish. Fear of discovering that you are not as ready as you hoped. And so instead of moving forward imperfectly, you stay still and call it preparation. The truth is simple. You do not become ready and then act. You act, and through action you become ready. Clarity comes from movement, not from overthinking. Confidence comes from repetition, not from waiting. Skill comes from practice, not from imagining success. Every person you admire once started before they felt prepared. Most people overestimate how much they need to begin and underestimate how much they will learn along the way. They believe they need certainty before action, but certainty is a result of action. When you take the first step, you gain information. When you take the second step, you gain feedback. And with each step forward, your understanding sharpens. Progress is messy. It is uncomfortable. It often looks unimpressive from the outside. But imperfect progress is infinitely more powerful than perfect intention. Intention without execution builds frustration. Execution without perfection builds experience. And experience is what turns uncertainty into competence. You will make mistakes. That is not a possibility. It is a guarantee. But mistakes are not signs that you are failing. They are signs that you are learning. The only people who avoid mistakes entirely are the ones who never move. And stagnation is far more dangerous than failure. When you allow yourself to move before you feel ready, something important happens. You stop seeing yourself as fragile. You stop treating mistakes as disasters. You begin to trust your ability to adapt. That trust becomes confidence. Not the loud kind, but the grounded kind that comes from knowing you can figure things out as you go. Many people confuse planning with progress. Planning feels productive, feels safe. It gives you the illusion of control. But without execution, planning becomes procrastination. You can think about changing your life forever and never actually change it. Thought alone does not transform. Action does. Starting imperfectly also teaches humility. You learn quickly what you don't know. You see your weaknesses clearly. And instead of being discouraged, you are given direction. Weakness reveals where growth is needed. Without action, those weaknesses stay hidden, and improvement never begins. There will be moments when you look back and cringe at your early attempts. That is not a sign of failure. That is a sign of growth. If you don't cringe at your past, it means you haven't evolved. Growth requires distance from who you once were. That distance is created by movement. Momentum does not come from giant leaps. It comes from showing up consistently and allowing progress to compound. Small steps taken daily outperform perfect plans that never leave your mind. You don't need to see the entire path. You need to see the next step and take it. Fear often tells you to wait until you feel confident. But confidence is built by doing hard things poorly at first and then improving. Every skill you have today was once something you struggled with. You did not wait to master it before trying. You learned by being uncomfortable. Action also exposes what truly matters. When you move, you discover which goals excite you and which ones don't. You learn what aligns with you and what drains you. Without action, everything remains theoretical. With action, reality provides clarity. There is freedom in letting go of the need to get it right the first time. You stop carrying the pressure of perfection. You allow yourself to experiment, to adjust, to grow. This flexibility keeps you moving forward instead of freezing under unrealistic expectations. You are not behind because you haven't perfected your path. You are behind only if you refuse to start. Time will pass whether you act or not. The difference is that action allows time to work in your favor. Inaction allows time to work against you. Starting imperfectly also builds resilience. You learn to recover from setbacks. You learn that disappointment is survivable. You learn that feedback is not rejection. These lessons make you stronger than any success ever could. Every time you act despite uncertainty, you weaken fear's influence over you. Fear thrives on hesitation. It loses power when you move. Even small actions disrupt its control. Over time, fear stops feeling like a wall and starts feeling like a signal that growth is happening. You do not need permission to begin. You do not need validation to continue. You need courage to take the first imperfect step and discipline to take the next one. Everything else is learned along the way. Progress will not announce itself. It will happen quietly, through effort that feels ordinary. But one day, you look back and realize that starting imperfectly was the most powerful decision you ever made. Because it broke the cycle of waiting. It replaced fear with experience. And it turned potential into reality. Stop asking if you are ready. Ask if you are willing. Willing to learn. Willing to adjust. Willing to fail forward. Willing to grow in public and improve in private. That willingness matters far more than readiness ever will. Your future is not built by perfect beginnings. It is built by consistent continuation. By starting before you feel ready and refusing to stop when it gets uncomfortable. That is how real progress is made. Move now. Adjust later. Learn constantly. That is the rhythm of growth. And once you accept that, you stop waiting for life to change and start changing it yourself. There will come a point where you understand something most people never fully accept. Growth is not just about what you do when things are going well. It is about how you respond when everything feels heavy, slow, and uncertain. This is where resilience is built. Not in moments of excitement, but in moments of pressure. Not when results are visible, but when effort feels unnoticed. Life will test you. Not once, but repeatedly. It will test your patience, your consistency, and your belief in yourself. There will be setbacks that feel unfair. Delays that feel unnecessary. Failures that make you question your direction. These moments are not detours. They are part of the process. And how you respond to them determines who you become. Most people break under pressure because they expect growth to be comfortable. They believe that if something feels difficult, it must be wrong. But difficulty is not a signal to stop. It is often a signal that you are being stretched beyond your current limits. Pressure reveals what is already inside you. It exposes weaknesses, but it also reveals strength you did not know you had. Resilience is not about pretending everything is fine. It is about staying engaged even when things are hard. It is about continuing to move forward while acknowledging discomfort. You are allowed to feel tired. You are allowed to feel discouraged. What matters is that you do not let those feelings decide your actions. Setbacks have a way of triggering old habits. Self-doubt, blame, avoidance. The temptation to quit often arrives disguised as logic. You start telling yourself that maybe this path isn't for you. Maybe you should wait. Maybe you should choose something easier. But easier rarely leads to fulfillment, and quitting rarely brings peace. Resilient people do not have fewer problems. They have stronger responses. They understand that setbacks are temporary, but quitting creates permanence. They treat obstacles as information, not as verdicts. Instead of asking why this is happening to them, they ask what this moment is teaching them. Pain has a way of sharpening focus. When things are easy, it is easy to drift. When things are hard, priorities become clear. You discover what truly matters, what you are willing to fight for, what you are willing to endure. This clarity is valuable, even though it comes at a cost. There will be days when progress feels invisible, when effort produces no immediate reward, when discipline feels heavier than usual. These are the days that separate those who build lasting strength from those who rely on motivation. Motivation fades quickly under pressure. Resilience keeps going. Resilience is built through repetition. Every time you choose to continue instead of quit, you strengthen it. Every time you recover from disappointment instead of collapsing under it, you grow. These moments may feel small, but they accumulate. Over time, you become someone who can withstand discomfort without losing direction. You do not need to be emotionally strong all the time. You need to be directionally strong. You need to know where you are going even when you feel unsure. Feelings fluctuate. Direction stabilizes. When you hold on to direction, emotions lose their power to derail you. Comparison often becomes louder during difficult seasons. You look around and wonder why others seem to be progressing faster, why their journey looks smoother. But you are only seeing the surface. Everyone carries unseen struggles, and your timeline is not meant to match anyone else's. Resilience requires you to stop measuring your worth by outcomes alone. Outcomes fluctuate. Effort is within your control. When you focus on effort, setbacks lose their ability to define you. You stop seeing failure as identity and start seeing it as experience. There will be moments when you want reassurance, when you want someone to tell you that everything will work out. Sometimes that reassurance will come. Often it won't. Resilience is learning to continue without guarantees, to trust yourself even when certainty is absent. Rest is part of resilience. Not quitting, not avoiding, resting with intention, resting to recover, not to escape. There is a difference between pausing to regain strength and stopping because you are afraid to continue. Knowing that difference requires honesty. Resilient people adjust without abandoning their direction. They refine their approach without giving up their values. They understand that flexibility is not weakness. It is intelligence. Stubbornness breaks under pressure. Adaptability survives. Your past setbacks do not disqualify you. They prepare you. Every difficulty you have survived has added to your capacity. You are stronger now than you were before, even if it doesn't always feel that way. Strength is often quiet. It shows up when you need it, not when you think about it. There will be moments when the weight feels personal. When you wonder why things are harder for you. These thoughts are natural, but staying in them too long turns pain into identity. Resilience is the ability to feel the weight and still stand up. You are allowed to slow down. You are allowed to ask for help. You are allowed to feel overwhelmed. What you are not allowed to do is surrender to the belief that you are incapable, because that belief is rarely true. It is just fear amplified by fatigue. Resilience is built when you keep promises to yourself during hard times, when you show up even at reduced capacity, when you choose progress over perfection. These choices compound into quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need validation because it is rooted in experience. Every time you survive something difficult, your threshold increases. Things that once felt unbearable become manageable. Challenges that once intimidated you become familiar. This is how strength grows, not by avoiding hardship, but by enduring it. You may not feel proud in the middle of the struggle. Pride often comes later when you look back and realize you didn't quit. When you see how much you carried and still kept moving, that realization changes how you see yourself. Resilience teaches you patience. Not passive patience, but active patience. The kind that keeps working while waiting. The kind that understands that meaningful things take time. That setbacks are not delays, but part of the design. Your journey will not be smooth. It was never meant to be. Smooth paths rarely build strong people. Friction does. Resistance does. Difficulty does. And every time you push through without losing yourself, you become more grounded, more capable, more resilient. You do not need to rush through hard seasons. You need to move through them intentionally, learning what you can, letting go of what no longer serves you, holding on to what matters most. One day, you will realize that the moments you thought were breaking you were actually shaping you. They taught you endurance. They taught you self-trust. They taught you that you can keep going even when certainty disappears. Resilience is not loud. It does not announce itself. It simply shows up again and again. And over time, it turns struggle into strength and pressure into purpose. Keep going. Not because it is easy. Not because you are sure. But because you are capable of more than quitting would ever allow you to discover. There is a moment when you finally understand that your environment is either building you or breaking you. It is never neutral. The people you spend time with, the conversations you engage in, the content you consume, and the spaces you move through every day are shaping your thoughts long before you are aware of it. And if you are not intentional about your environment, it will quietly decide your future for you. Most people underestimate how much influence surrounds them. They believe they are strong enough to resist it, disciplined enough to ignore it, confident enough to rise above it. But influence does not ask for permission. It works subtly. It seeps in through repetition. What you hear every day becomes familiar. What becomes familiar starts to feel normal. And what feels normal slowly becomes acceptable. If you are surrounded by people who complain constantly, complaining becomes easier. If you are surrounded by people who avoid responsibility, avoidance feels justified. If you are surrounded by people who fear change, growth starts to feel dangerous. Not because you agree with them consciously, but because your mind adapts to what it sees most often. This is why changing your environment can change your life faster than motivation ever will. Motivation is internal and unstable. Environment is external and consistent. When your environment supports growth, discipline requires less effort. When your environment works against you, even strong discipline gets exhausted. Your environment includes more than physical space. It includes digital space. What you scroll through, what you listen to, what you allow into your mind during quiet moments. If you constantly consume content that feeds fear, comparison, anger, or distraction, your thoughts will reflect that. You cannot expect clarity from a mind that is constantly overstimulated. Many people say they want change, but they protect the very environment that keeps them stuck. They stay in conversations that drain them. They revisit places that trigger old habits. They maintain relationships that pull them backward. Not because they don't want growth, but because change requires letting go, and letting go feels uncomfortable. Letting go does not mean cutting everyone off or isolating yourself from the world. It means being honest about influence. It means recognizing who supports your growth and who subtly resists it. Some people are meant to walk with you for a season, not a lifetime. Holding on to them beyond that season creates tension, not loyalty. You will outgrow people. This is not arrogance. It is evolution. And when it happens, you will feel guilt. You will feel misunderstood. You will feel selfish. But growth often requires choosing alignment over approval. Staying loyal to a version of yourself you have outgrown will eventually feel like betrayal. Your space matters too. Chaos in your environment creates chaos in your mind. You don't need perfection. You need intention. A clean space does not guarantee focus, but a cluttered space almost guarantees distraction. When your surroundings are intentional, your thoughts slow down. And when your thoughts slow down, clarity has room to emerge. Environment also shapes standards. When you are around people who keep their word, consistency feels normal. When you are around people who show discipline, effort feels expected. When you are around people who think long-term, patience becomes easier. Standards rise naturally when your environment supports them. This is why proximity matters. You do not become like the people you admire from afar. You become like the people you spend time with. Even if you say nothing, even if you think you are unaffected. Influence does not require agreement. It only requires exposure. If you want to grow, you must place yourself in environments that challenge you. Environments where you feel slightly uncomfortable, where your excuses feel small, where your standards are raised without words. Comforting environments feel safe, but challenging environments make you capable. Sometimes this means being the least experienced person in the room, the least confident, the least successful. That discomfort is not a threat. It is an invitation. It shows you what is possible. It stretches your identity. And if you stay long enough, you grow into that space. Your environment should remind you of who you are becoming, not who you used to be. Visual cues matter. Habits matter. Daily routines matter. When your environment reflects your intentions, progress feels more natural. When it contradicts them, progress feels forced. There will be resistance when you change your environment. People may question you. They may feel threatened. They may accuse you of changing. And they will be right. You are changing. That is the point. Growth disrupts familiar dynamics, and not everyone is comfortable with that. You are not responsible for managing other people's comfort at the cost of your growth. You are responsible for your direction. And that responsibility sometimes requires difficult decisions. Quiet decisions. Decisions that feel lonely before they feel empowering. Protecting your environment is an ongoing practice. You don't set it once and forget it. You adjust as you grow. What supported you last year may limit you now. What inspired you before may distract you now. Staying intentional requires regular reflection. Environment also includes how you speak to yourself. Your internal dialogue is the environment you are always in. If your self-talk is harsh, dismissive, or discouraging, it becomes difficult to sustain growth. Discipline thrives in an environment of respect, not punishment. You build a supportive internal environment by noticing how you respond to mistakes. Do you attack yourself, or do you correct and continue? Do you label yourself, or do you adjust your behavior? The way you speak to yourself after failure determines how quickly you recover. Small changes in environment create big shifts over time. Removing one distraction, adding one supportive habit, limiting exposure to negativity, seeking out one conversation that challenges you. These adjustments compound quietly. You do not need to redesign your entire life overnight. You need to start paying attention. Attention is the beginning of intention, and intention is the beginning of change. When your environment supports who you are becoming, growth feels less like a battle and more like a process. You still work hard. You still face discomfort, but you are no longer fighting constant resistance from your surroundings. Your future will reflect the environments you choose today, the rooms you stay in, the voices you allow close, the habits you normalize. Choose wisely, because environment shapes identity, and identity shapes destiny. Be intentional. Be selective. Be willing to let go. The environment you protect today is the life you experience tomorrow. There is a quiet truth most people avoid confronting. You cannot move forward while constantly carrying the weight of your past. Not because the past defines you, but because clinging to it drains the energy required to build what comes next. Memories, mistakes, regrets, and old identities become invisible chains when you refuse to release them. Your past taught you lessons. It shaped you, tested you, but it was never meant to become your permanent residence. When you replay old failures, relive old pain, or keep reminding yourself of who you used to be, you anchor your identity to a version of yourself that no longer exists. Growth requires space, and space is created by letting go. Many people mistake holding on for loyalty. They believe that releasing the past means invalidating their experiences. It doesn't. Letting go does not erase what happened. It simply means you stop allowing it to control your present decisions. You honor the lesson without reliving the pain. Regret is one of the heaviest burdens you can carry. Not because mistakes are unforgivable, but because regret keeps you stuck in moments you can no longer change. You replay scenarios, imagine different outcomes, and punish yourself endlessly. Meanwhile, the present moment, the only place where change is possible, slips away. Forgiveness is not about excusing what happened. It is about freeing yourself from the emotional debt of the past. Sometimes that forgiveness is directed toward others. Often, it is directed toward yourself. You made decisions with the awareness you had at the time. You survived what you knew how to survive. That does not make you weak. It makes you human. The version of you who made those mistakes did not have the strength, clarity, or knowledge you have now. Judging your past self with your present awareness is unfair. Growth means recognizing that you are no longer that person, and allowing yourself to move forward accordingly. Holding on to old identities can be just as limiting as holding on to old pain. You may still see yourself as the person who failed, the person who struggled, the person who was overlooked or underestimated. But identity is not fixed. It evolves through action. The moment you choose differently, your identity begins to shift. Letting go also means releasing narratives that no longer serve you. Stories like, "This is just how I am," or "This always happens to me." These narratives feel familiar, but familiarity does not equal truth. The stories you tell yourself become the framework through which you interpret reality. Change the story, and behavior follows. There is comfort in the known, even when the known is painful. The past feels predictable. The future feels uncertain. This is why many people unconsciously cling to what hurt them, because at least it is familiar. But familiarity is not safety. It is stagnation disguised as comfort. You cannot heal what you refuse to release. Healing requires acceptance, not attachment. It requires acknowledging what happened, learning from it, and choosing not to carry it forward. This choice is not made once. It is made repeatedly. Each time the past resurfaces, you choose again. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It means remembering without reliving. It means being able to look back without being pulled backward. This emotional distance creates strength. It allows you to use your past as reference, not as identity. Your future requires emotional capacity, new goals, new responsibilities, new challenges. If your emotional energy is tied up in resentment, regret, or self-blame, there is little left to invest in growth. Releasing the past is not weakness. It is strategic. There will be moments when old memories resurface unexpectedly. Place, a song, conversation. These moments do not mean you have failed to move on. They mean you are human. What matters is how long you stay there. Acknowledge it, feel it, then return to the present. You are allowed to outgrow your past. You are allowed to become someone new. You are allowed to release versions of yourself that no longer align with who you are becoming. Growth does not require permission from your history. Some people hold onto the past because it gives them an explanation for their current limitations. Letting go removes that excuse, and that can feel uncomfortable, because once the past is no longer the reason, responsibility returns to the present. Responsibility is empowering, but it is also demanding. Letting go gives you back control. You stop reacting to old wounds. You stop making decisions based on fear of repeating the past. You start responding to the present with clarity instead of emotion. This shift changes everything. The past can inform you, but it should not imprison you. You are not required to carry every memory forward. Some are meant to be learned from and left behind. This selective memory is not denial. It is wisdom. Your strength today is proof that you survived what once felt impossible. You do not need to keep revisiting those moments to validate your resilience. You can honor your strength by continuing forward. Letting go also creates peace. Not the kind that comes from avoiding pain, but the kind that comes from acceptance. Acceptance of what happened. Acceptance of what cannot be changed. acceptance of who you are now. This peace is grounding. It frees mental energy for creation instead of rumination. You may fear that letting go will make you forget where you came from. It won't. It will simply stop you from living there. You carry the lessons with you whether you hold onto the pain or not. Choose the lighter load. The present moment is powerful. It is where your habits are formed, where your decisions are made, where your future takes shape. When you are fully present, the past loses its grip. Letting go is not an event. It is a practice, a quiet decision repeated daily. To release what you cannot change and invest in what you can. To stop reopening wounds that no longer require your attention. Your future does not need your past to survive. It needs your focus. It needs your energy. It needs your commitment. And you cannot give those things fully while carrying emotional weight that no longer serves you. Release what no longer fits. Not with anger, not with resentment, but with gratitude for the lessons and courage for what comes next. You are not starting over. You are starting forward. And that direction changes everything. There comes a point when everything you've learned, endured, practiced, and resisted begins to come together. Not in a dramatic moment, not with applause, but in a quiet realization that you are no longer the same person you once were. You think differently, you respond differently, you carry yourself differently, and that shift did not happen overnight. It was built slowly, through choices that seemed small at the time. Transformation is rarely loud. It does not announce itself. It shows up in how you handle pressure, in how you recover from setbacks, in how you speak to yourself when no one else is listening. One day you notice that things that once overwhelmed you now feel manageable, that doubts that once controlled you now pass without stopping you. That is growth, and it is earned. The strongest version of you is not fearless. It is steady. It is grounded. It understands that uncertainty is part of life and does not panic because of it. This version of you does not need constant reassurance. It does not chase validation. It trusts itself because it has proven itself through action. You begin to understand that confidence is not loud or aggressive. It is calm. It is the quiet assurance that you can handle whatever comes next, even if you don't yet know how. That confidence was built every time you showed up when it was hard. Every time you chose discipline over excuses. Every time you continued despite discomfort. You stop waiting for life to become easy. You stop expecting perfect conditions. You stop believing that someday everything will line up and effort will disappear. Instead, you accept effort as part of the journey. And in that acceptance, struggle loses its power over you. There is a freedom that comes from no longer fighting reality, from working with what is instead of wishing for what isn't. You direct your energy toward what you can control, your habits, your mindset, your actions. This focus creates momentum. Momentum creates progress. Progress builds belief. You no longer see challenges as interruptions. You see them as training. Each obstacle sharpens something within you. Patience, strength, awareness, resilience. The very things required to carry greater responsibility are built through resistance. The strongest version of you understands that growth never truly ends. There is no final destination where effort stops and satisfaction remains forever. There are seasons of intensity and seasons of rest, seasons of clarity and seasons of uncertainty, and all of them serve a purpose. You learn to listen more than you speak, to observe more than you react, to pause before responding. This awareness gives you control, and control creates peace, not because life is calm, but because you are. You stop measuring yourself against others. Comparison loses its grip when you are aligned with your own path. You understand that everyone is carrying something unseen, that progress looks different for everyone, and that your responsibility is not to be ahead of others, but to be honest with yourself. There is strength in knowing when to push and when to rest, when to hold firm and when to adjust. The strongest version of you is not rigid. It is adaptable, can bend without breaking. It can recover without collapsing. You begin to notice how far you've come, not in a proud way, in a grounded way. You remember the confusion, the fear, the doubt, and you see how you moved through it. That memory becomes fuel, proof that you can handle what lies ahead. Your standards rise naturally, not because you force them, but because you respect yourself more. You no longer tolerate habits, environments, or conversations that pull you backward, not out of arrogance, but out of clarity. You become someone others can rely on, not because you promise more, but because you follow through. Reliability becomes part of your identity, and with it comes trust from others, and more importantly, from yourself. There will still be hard days, still moments of frustration, still setbacks. Strength does not remove difficulty. It changes your relationship with it. You stop asking why this is happening to you and start asking how you will respond. You no longer need to prove yourself. Your life becomes the evidence. Quiet consistency speaks louder than explanation ever could, and that silence feels powerful. The strongest version of you is not perfect. It is honest. Honest about limits. Honest about effort. Honest about growth. And that honesty keeps you moving forward instead of pretending. You understand that discipline, focus, resilience, clarity, and self-trust were never separate goals. They were tools. Tools that shaped your character. And character is what determines the quality of your life. You stop searching for motivation. You rely on structure. You rely on habits. You rely on the identity you've built. Motivation becomes a bonus, not a requirement point one day. You realize that the life you once hoped for is slowly becoming your reality. Not because luck arrived. Not because someone saved you. But because you did the work. Quietly. Consistently. Even when no one was watching. And there is peace in that realization. Deep peace. The kind that does not depend on outcomes or approval. The kind that comes from knowing you did not abandon yourself. You are still becoming. Still learning. Still growing. But now you trust the process. You trust yourself. And that trust is unshakable. No one came to save you. And that is exactly why you became strong.